Why have you taken me into the locker room? Why can't you tell me in the office?
Because they wouldn't understand.
Understand what? What could be so important?
I think I've perfected a way to make America a socialist country.
Oh, brother.
What?
We've talked about this before. This is the 1920s. America is not ready for socialism. They are dead set against it. Besides, socialism has gotten a bad name. It's been a miserable flop in Russia. Farm production and industrial production are among the lowest in the civilized world. Stalin has killed millions of his own people because they wouldn't cooperate. What makes you think that America will be more receptive to it?
Because we won't make the same mistakes that they made in Russia.
All right. I'm listening.
When the communists took over Russia, it was a Christian nation. The people had a sense of right and wrong that only comes from a belief in God. So, when the state began to take property away from hard-working people, the Christians were outraged.
I don't know how to tell you this, but America is a Christian nation. All of our laws here are based on biblical principles.
Aha. So, that's the first thing we'll take care of before we put the first socialist in the White House.
What are you talking about?
The communists were premature in taking over Russia. They should have first eliminated the influence of the church before they made their move.
And just how are you proposing to eliminate the influence of the church in America?
Through the courts and through the schools.
You lost me.
First of all, we know that people will never vote for socialism, so we have to centralize power to the federal government through the courts, and then seize power when the time is right. It's going to take years, maybe even generations, but we have to load up the courts with judges who like to throw their weight around, be little dictators. We'll supply them pious-sounding arguments that will let them literally dictate public law from the bench.
You can't do that. The judges will be impeached.
No. We'll call it judicial activism. And our first priority for the courts will be to get God out of our schools. And if the legislature tries to overrule the courts, the new laws will be declared unconstitutional.
On what grounds?
Pious-sounding arguments like separation of church and state.
Separation of church and state? That's not in the Constitution.
No, but I found it in one of the letters from Thomas Jefferson. Listen, with liberal judges who like to throw their weight around, you don't need much precedent, just something that looks good in the headlines of the newspapers.
Americans won't just sit by and watch us do that to their schools. American schools were originally founded so that people could learn to read the Bible. All but a handful of our founding fathers were dedicated Christians. The rest believed in God.
Yes, but how many Americans remember that?
The ones who graduated from Harvard and Yale will. Those colleges started out as Bible colleges.
I'm not saying that this will all happen overnight. It could take us 50 years to pack the courts with liberal judges, and while we do that, we will also infiltrate the school systems ourselves and dumb down the graduates. We'll change the curriculum to make it politically correct and historically revisionist. I'm telling you, in a few generations, all they'll remember is a wall between church and state.
You'll never get away with it. There was never intended to be separation between church and state. In fact, at the time of the signing of the Bill of Rights, the state of Massachusetts had the Catholic Church as its state religion. The purpose of the First Amendment was to prevent the federal government establishing a federal religion and from telling states like Massachusetts that they couldn't be Catholic.
I'm telling you, by the time we're done packing the courts and dumping down American schools, all the American people will remember is separation of church and state.
You must think Americans are stupid.
That's what I'm counting on.
Based on a play by Bob Snook. Conditions for use: do not sell any part of the script, even if you rewrite it. Pay no royalties, even if you make money from performances. You may reproduce and distribute this script freely, but all copies must contain this copyright statement.